Hi everyone, my name is Mary and welcome back to Quinn Ink. Today in this video we are going to make shells and ladders, and I did it in about 4 different colors. You can make this into a blanket, a scarf, or a granny square like I did. It's very easy, very simple, and it's only a 1-row repeat. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Don't forget to scroll down, hit that like button so that way I know you're enjoying this video, and don't forget to subscribe so that way you don't miss any Saturday grannies such as this one and others I'll do in the future. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, so the tools that you're going to need for the shells and ladders is going to be a crochet hook, always. I am using an I9 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. Always need a pair of scissors to cut off all your strings, a yarn needle to sew in all your strings. And to start with, we also have the yarn. So I'm using 3 different colors. The first one is Red Heart Super Saver, 7 ounces, 364 yards, and this one is in the color Buff. We also have Red Heart Super Saver, again 7 ounces, 364 yards, and this one is in the color Turca. The next one is going to be white. This is also Red Heart, probably the same specs as these ones over here. And then the last one is also going to be Red Heart. This one is in the color Lilac. Okay, so those are your 4 colors that we're going to be using. The first color that we're going to start with is going to be Turca. So go ahead and get that started and I'll be back shortly. Alrighty, so how to do the shells and ladders. So the first thing you're going to always want to do is make a slip knot. Always wrap my yarn around my fingers to make a loop. And then I put that yarn tail in between the loop like this and I just pull tight. Okay, and then there we go. I want that a little bit tighter. So to make the shells and ladders, we are going to make a single foundation crochet. And how this works is you're going to make 8 of these, and then you just keep making 8 plus 8 plus 8, and then you'll make 3 more. Okay, so what I ended up doing was making 16. So we're going to do 2 chains, so that's 1, that's 2. In the first chain that we just made, we're going to put our hook right into there, grab our working yarn and pull up a loop, yarn over and chain 1, yarn over and pull through both loops to make a single crochet. And this little twisted knot right here, we're going to put a hook right back into there. We're going to grab our yarn and pull through 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and only pull through that 1 loop to make a chain. Now you have 2 loops, yarn over and pull through 2. I will be back when I have 16 of these. Alrighty, I'm back and I made 16. You also want to make 3 more foundation single crochets, so that will be a total of 19 stitches. So 1 and 3. Okay, once you've made 19, you're going to flip your work upwards, and then we're going to chain 1, and into that very first that very first foundation single crochet, we're going to make a double crochet. So you're going to yarn over, go into your stitch, grab your working yarn, pull up loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Now you're going to chain 1, you're going to skip a stitch, and into the next stitch you're going to put a double crochet. Now you're going to skip 2 stitches, and into the 3rd stitch you're going to put 5 double crochets. So these 2 are going to be your ladders, and this one that we're putting 5 double crochets in, this is going to be your shell. And then we have 5. Okay. And then you're going to skip 2 stitches, and into the 3rd stitch you're going to put a double crochet. And then you're going to chain 1. Then you're going to skip a stitch, and into the next stitch you're going to put a double crochet. So essentially what you're going to do here is you're going to have 2 ladders on each side of the shell, and then the shell will be right in the middle, just like that. So then again, we're going to skip 2 stitches, and into the 3rd stitch we're going to put 5 double crochets. And then we'll have 2 more ladders on the side, and 5. Okay. Then you're going to skip 2 stitches, and into the 3rd stitch you're going to put a double crochet, a chain 1. Then you should have 2 more stitches left over. You're going to skip the next stitch, and into the very last stitch on the end you're going to put a double crochet. And there is your very first row. Now you can make these wider by making 8 stitches, 8 stitches, 8 stitches, 8 stitches, and then once you have the length that you want, you add just 3 on the end. Alrighty, so now we are going to be working on row number 2. I don't ever count this bottom row as my first row. I just count it as my initial row to get me started. So for round number 2, you're just going to chain 1, turn your work, and you're going to put a double crochet into the top of the double crochet from the previous round. And then you're just going to chain 1, put a double crochet right into this stitch right here, double crochet on top of the double crochet. And then once you get to your shell stitch, since we did 5 double crochets in here, you're going to count 1, 2, and into the 3rd stitch right here, which will be that middle stitch, you'll put 5 double crochets. So you'll always put 5 double crochets on top of that middle double crochet from the shell stitch. So that way, when you get to your next row, you always know that this middle stitch right here is where you're going to put your 5 double crochets. And then again, you're going to put a double crochet. Yep, we're going to skip right over these stitches, and into that double crochet right there, you're going to put a double crochet right on top. Chain 1, and then a double crochet right on top of there. And then of course you can always turn your work like this if you look at stitches. So then you'll skip 2 stitches, and into the 3rd stitch, that is where you're going to put your 5 double crochets. Okay, and then the very last, again, you can turn your work, skip 2 stitches, and into that 3rd stitch right here, and put a double crochet, a chain 1, and then a double crochet. Just like that. And that is how you do the shells and the ladders. So for this very first one that I did it in 3 colors, and I just did 3 rows. So I'm going to repeat that again. So I'm going to do one more row of the turqa, then I'll come back and I'll show you how to change colors to this buff color. Alrighty, I will be back shortly. Alrighty, so I finished the 3rd row. So pretty much you're just repeating row number 1 over and over again. This works up very quickly and very fast. Then you're just going to cut your yarn over and pull through and then tighten. And then I always do on the tie on method, so I'm just going to go back into this stitch right here, and I have my buff color right here. I'm going to yarn over and pull through, and then I'm just going to tie this onto my work, and then I'm just going to start just like I did down here for row number 1. I'm just gonna chain 1, pull my yarn through, and then chain 1, and then I'm just gonna start doing that. I'm gonna do the shells and ladders is what I'm gonna do. Alrighty, when I have 3 rows of the buff, I will show you what that looks like. Then we'll move on to lilac, and then the very last row will be the border, which is the white row that goes around this granny square. Alrighty, so I'll be back in about 3 rows. Alright, I'm back, and I finished the 3 rows of buff, and now I'm going to change it to lilac. So I'm just going to cut my yarn over, pull through, and tighten. And I have lilac right here. I'm just going to tie it on. And then I'm going to start my rows. Once I'm done with the 3 rows of lilac, I will be back to show you the very last row. And then we'll go from there. Okay, so that's how I tied on. And I wouldn't worry about sewing in your strings right now. Because when we do the white row that goes around this granny square, you will be able to sew in your strings into that border section that'll be on the side here. Okay, so I'll be back in 3 rows. Alright, finally back. Got my white yarn ready. And I finished 3 rows of lilac. So this is what the shells and ladders should look like. So now we're going to cut off our yarn, and we're going to connect the white one. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through and tighten. And let me get my lilac out of the way. Okay, so now we're going to do the border for this. Okay, so you're going to put your hook into the corner right here. We're going to attach it with a tie on, and I did single crochets. I wanted the border to be easy, and so I decided to do single crochets. So you can put your hook back into your stitch, grab your working yarn and pull up a loop, yarn over and chain 1, and into that very first stitch right there we're going to put a single crochet. So put your hook back into there, grab your working yarn and pull up a loop 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through 2. Into that chain 1 spacing we're going to put 1 single crochet, and then you're going to put, I am actually single crocheting my tails into my work, single crochet on top of that stitch. Actually I just kept going across. I didn't even go into this spacing. The only spacing I went into was the chain 1. And so pretty much I'm just going to single crochet across like this. till I got to the chain 1 spacing, and then I put a single crochet right into there, and then a single crochet. So I'm going to single crochet to here. I'll be there in just a second. Alright, so when I made it to the end of this very last stitch right here, I actually put 2 single crochets so that way I could turn the corner like this. Okay, and then once I turned the corner, I just went into the spacing and I did 2 single crochets into the spacing, and then when I got to the big spacing, I put 2 more single crochets just like this. When I got to something like this, I put 3 single crochets in there. 1 here, 1 right there, and then 1 in here. And then of course 2 into the spacing. Okay, so I will meet you down here at the very end in just a moment. Okay, so when I made it down to the end, I just put 2 single crochets into the side. And then once I got here, I decided to put 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, and 3, all into the corner space like that. Up here it wasn't so sharp of a corner, that's why I only put 2, whereas down here it's a little more sharper, and so I put 3. And then all I'm gonna do, since you have stitches, is you're gonna just put 1 single crochet into every single stitch, just like that, and then I'll meet you down here at the other end. Alright, so when you make it down to the end right here, you should have 1 more stitch, and this is where you're gonna put 3 single crochets into. So what I did was I skipped this big piece right here and kind of made it as 1 big stitch. So just like that. As you can see right there, that little stitch right there, made that into 1 stitch. And then I'm just going to put 3 single crochets right into that spacing. Because as you can see, it has a bulky knot on the end, and it's a little sharper. So that's why I'm doing 3. And then now we're working on the side. And just like on the other side, you're going to put 2 single crochets right into the spacing. Trying to single crochet that yarn tail in. And it's just as it was on the other side. Just 3 single crochets right here. 1, 2. And of course 3 is right there. So pretty much into the spacings. The big spacings I always put 2 single crochets. And then into something like this, I was just finding spacings that my hook could go right into. So like this one would be 2 single crochets, because there was only 2 spacings in there. Alrighty, so I'll meet you down at the other end in just a moment. Okay, so we finally made it down to the end, and I just need to put 2 single crochets into the big spacing, and then 1 more single crochet into this little stitch. And then all I did was I go into that very first stitch from the beginning of the round, yarn over, pull through, and pull through as a slip stitch, grab my scissors, cut my yarn, yarn over, pull through, and tighten. And that is what the shells and ladders look like. And then there is the second one. So I made 2 of them. Alrighty, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope this made your day even better. And until next time, everyone, don't forget to scroll down, hit that like button so I know you enjoyed this video with the shelves and ladders. And until next time, everyone, have a wonderful Saturday and bye-bye.